Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. Today I'm very excited to have Nicky Felton here with me. Nicky is all about getting giddy over storytelling, community building and kick-ass communications. Yay! She runs her New Zealand-based creative videography studio, Play Creative, alongside her fiance Daniel Franks. And Nicky also spends a good portion of her day online connecting the Owners Collective community in Facebook groups. So we had Prue Chapman on a couple of weeks ago interviewing her, talking about her Business Owners Collective, and Nicky is that connection there. So thanks so much for joining me, Nicky.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me. It's going to be great.
Pleasure. We were, before we started recording, we were talking about when we got on this call that we haven't actually spoken on a call before, but it felt like that we had, because we've been in contact for so long and in such ways of depth as well. So
Totally. It was ridiculous. Yeah, we jumped on and we were like, hold on. We're kind of meeting for the first time, but we really had to rack our brains as to whether we'd actually talked, because we've communicated online so much and I guess follow each other around the internet a little bit too. So yeah, we just see each other every other day. But yeah, first time actually chatting in person. In
person, yeah. But I think that's a really good testament to how we can communicate remotely with people and still build up genuine connections and a genuine understanding of each other as we and getting to know each other. It's just, I don't know, it was just really cool, especially with the world going to remote working at the moment, where some businesses have already been all over that and some are learning to be into that now more than ever. So
100%. We're in different countries right now, you know, and never seen each other in person. It's good fun. Good fun.
But where in New Zealand are you based?
So I'm based in Hamilton, which is the central upper North Island.
Mm-hmm.
Most landlocked part of New Zealand, not stoked, but hey, we're here. It's very cold today, as you can see. It was like 4 degrees this morning. It was very chilly.
No, such a difference. So with your work with Play Creative, each day you film, you document, you craft videography that connects people. It moves and inspires actions and it shares stories. So I wanted to talk to you about that unique way of communicating through videography, through video, and how that works, or how that's a bit different to normal communication or standard or typical historical communication.
Beautiful. Yeah, video is such an amazing platform. And it's so cool how we're all having access to it now, just through your phone, through Zoom, that kind of thing. It's just absolutely blowing up. And I think the beautiful thing about video is that it gives so much context. So you can see the person, you can hear their voice, you can hear their tone of voice, their accent, you can see their mannerisms. I talk with heaps of facials, so you'll see that. And I think it gives a lot more context into what's being said. You feel like you build a lot more of a connection with somebody through seeing them on video, because really when it comes down to it, we can see likeness between ourselves and the other person. So the work that we do is we create people's sort of story into a video. So it's your hero sort of marketing piece. That's our general piece that we create. So it tells not only what people do, but also why they do it as well. And I guess that's why it's such an important medium to do it through video, is because there's so much meaning and underlying meaning and values and history that's encapsulated in one video. And you can see that so clearly when somebody gets emotive on video, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a really cool medium. And I think it's exciting because it's really accessible to everyone right now. And so yeah, it's a really powerful one.
Yeah, and I like that bit that you said about how it sort of, you get a feeling for people and you get to sort of have an understanding of where people have come from or what they're about and everything like that. And I imagine that that creates a different level of connection, whether it's with a business or with a person as well, especially when you create those hero pieces.
100%, that's the one. And the goal always is to build a relationship with the people who are watching the video on the other side. So whether they're already existing clients, whether they're future clients. And the other beautiful part is whether it's with the team who run the business. I think that's something that we've seen that's been really amazing, is actually articulating a story really builds that pride and that team culture amongst not only who you're doing the video for, because often it's really hard to articulate our own story, but also through their team, and kind of boost their pride in a business. So yeah, it's really just about connections and relationship building and pulling out those juicy bits of the story that that are kind of untold otherwise.
Yeah, I love that. But I want to take it back a little as well.
Yeah.
So that's where you're at now. What was your understanding of how, because in this interview series we're talking about leadership and communication, because to me they work hand in hand with each other. But what was your understanding of how leadership and communication should, quote unquote, should be as you were growing up?
Great question, and so different for everyone, I'm sure. I had a really unique upbringing. I have very cool parents, and they put us up on an island, and then we went sailing. So we were brought up in northern beaches of Sydney, actually, original Aussie from back in the days. Yeah, so we were brought up on Scotland Island, and Dad was working at a big bank in central Sydney and was commuting every day for a good portion of our sort of younger years, and then decided to take us off sailing because he was really missing us and not spending the time with us. So it was a pretty incredible trip where we sailed around the South Pacific, and I think that was sort of my first concept of leadership, was kind of the whole leading by doing side of things. So yeah, parents being, I guess, awesome role models and just kind of showing the way. So that's been a pretty huge theme throughout life, and I think one that was pretty cool to have installed so early. And I guess that's something that has continued on through my life, and that I've been able to see good leaders versus slightly more poor leaders, is just that really basic principle of leading by doing.
Mm.
If you're, if you're going to lead a team, doing the right thing in the first place, or showing the way, or doing the brave and bold things, or making the tough decisions, I think is, where that true natural leadership comes from. And then I think the communication flows from that, in that communicating why you're making those decisions, or genuinely being interested in or invested in the kind of even just well-being of others, I think flows on from that leading by doing. So yeah, that was probably my introduction to it at a younger age.
Oh, I feel like we're the same person sometimes.
Classic.
It's all about leadership it's really that concept of you inspire more people by doing and showing them the way than you do by telling them what to do.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I think that's why it's important to be visible as a leader. It's all fine and well having like a large company or that kind of thing, being this leader at the top, but if your team members and your employees aren't getting access to that leader, or aren't seeing, or there's no visibility, I think it's really difficult to lead in many ways. So I think that's why the communication part of it is really important, to increase that visibility.
Yeah, because it would be difficult to instill a culture like within a group, whether it's a workplace or otherwise, without having that visibility of leadership, which is probably where videography plays a really good role, because if they're not able to be there in person and present for whatever reason, and there can be a million valid reasons, they still get to have that presence in a different way, which is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
So with your work as well, you work a lot with, so I'll get you to tell me exactly what it is, but you work a lot with horses, right? And
Yeah.
in equestrian, tell me about that. And there's a question I have around that.
Yeah, cool. So I guess I mean, I've been into horses my whole life generally, and have grown up in the horsey scene, and it just kind of fell into place that it was a interesting niche that came up through the video work. So we started our business very organically, just kind of bought a camera and started doing some work. And so we do all different industries, but the equine industry has become one that we spend a lot of time in, which is quite cool and pretty awesome to be able to actually combine something that I'm relatively passionate about and have knowledge in with the video side of things and the communication side of things.
Yeah.
And I think really powerful when you're a horsey person and you know horsey people and how they communicate and how they think and that kind of thing, and then can provide that service for a client much easier than somebody who doesn't know the industry coming on in.
It's nice to have that part industry as well to work in. Just as an aside, like it is nice to be like, oh, I can tell these stories and I can show that. So I'm curious about the dynamic of leadership and communication when you're filming, especially when it includes horses. And like, I know dogs and I like to a degree, but to film Yeah. So how does that show up? Is it different, or is it in a unique way, or?
Yeah, pretty similar, I think. And I think the general theme across everything when we're filming or doing our work is providing people, making sure that people are really confident in what they're doing. So put a camera in front of anybody and they'll like forget how to walk. Like it's just what happens. You literally, people second guess every single thing about themselves. And it's terrible, and you can totally understand from their perspective
Mm.
how then hard it is just to show up and tell their actual story. So largely my job, and I guess a little bit of context here in that I run the business with my partner Dan, and Dan's the very techie camera editing side of things, and I'm the communications, fluffy strategy, words. I do the interviews, I deal with the clients, I'm the people side. So my job on a shoot is really keeping our client informed but really comfortable, so providing them with the information they need to be really confident in what they're doing, and really try and kind of prop them up to a point where they can tell their story, they're confident enough and they're comfortable enough. And it seems really simple, but it's so important. And I guess a large part of what I'm doing, so we don't do a lot of scripting in our videos. We do Q&A sessions to try and pull the story out, because it's, your story changes when you script it or you try and write it down and then try and regurgitate that to a video screen, and all emotion just disappears. So essentially, if you're having a conversation with me and we're filming it, it comes across a lot more natural. With the horse side of things, obviously horses are quite large, unpredictable animals. And so there's an extra element of, I guess, a little bit of risk involved. So it's just really around, I guess, largely the safety and making sure everybody knows what they're doing, and can do everything relatively safely and happily. And obviously there's such an emotive draw into horses, so it's a really fun sort of story to tell. But even, I guess, over and above the equine industry, our target market, we've never narrowed it down to an industry. It's just people who are really passionate about what they do. And that's sort of our non-negotiable now, is that we'll only work with people who are really, really passionate about what they do, and they want to do more of it, and it does great things for the world. So it's amazing working with people and having great conversations with them when they're sharing some pretty deep and cool stuff with you. So
that is pretty amazing, and I think that's a really good way to approach how or who you work with. It's not so much about the demographic, but more about like almost that psychographic of where are they at and what do they want to tell and what do they want to share, and how can you kind of guide them to communicate and share that in themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have any leaders, past or present, in the world or whatever it is, that you kind of that inspire you, or that you look up to, or that you glean a little bit of things from, just as it shows up in you?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've been really, really fortunate to have really amazing leaders in my life. Both my parents are incredible humans. I really, really respect and admire them. They've made a lot of pretty bold decisions and life moves that they've just committed to 100% and kept going. And I think that that's really inspiring. And decisions that didn't go down so smoothly with other people, so that were potentially risky, raising us on a boat, or starting an avocado farm when you have no idea about avocados, you're a banker, or like silly things like that the rest of the friends and family are like, what are you doing, and they've committed to them and made them work, which I think is really cool. My older sister is also somebody who I consider a big role model. She's currently chasing her equestrian dream over in the UK. She moved last year. Yeah, she's trying to make Tokyo and all of that, the Olympics. So she's doing really cool things. And then obviously Prue, who you've interviewed as well. Yeah, she's been really amazing as a leader and a mentor through being involved in the Owners Collective over the past sort of 3 or 4 years. And I just love the way that she's able to pivot and change with the times, and communicate with her crew and prop everybody up all the time. She's just such a sharpshooter. And just gets shit done, which is honestly so inspiring, just makes decisions and continues on with them. So yeah, that's really cool. And the last one I think is very relevant to now, but our New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, is just the coolest human ever. And has honestly just shone through a number of events the last over the last couple of years. So she just shows such empathy and understanding and is such a real life human. And I think it's like taking politics to the people. Like, politicians, you just don't feel connected with them because they talk in a lingo that us people who they're making decisions on behalf of just completely don't understand. They're not relatable. They're not, traditionally. And then she comes along and she's a woman, she's a mum, she's like doing a Facebook video on her phone from putting her kid to bed, and you're just like, thank you. Like, this is, pretty amazing. So, yeah, that's been really, really cool to see her kind of shape, I guess, our country's culture.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think on that note, just the way she's carried herself out, like carried everything, is she's not afraid to communicate. And because she's not afraid to show up and communicate and also screw up if she does, because she's doing these Facebook Lives, like, there's a huge potential to mess up because it's unscripted. But in that essence that she's not afraid to show up and try and communicate makes it even more effective. And I think that's a really good lesson for a lot of people, politics aside, is that that's what it's really about. We just need to not be so afraid to try, because then that's where it becomes really effective and really lands.
100%. I think she's just really nailed that her job is about the people. So she needs to communicate to the people how the people communicate. And I honestly think that that's just the clearest, most simple, in hindsight, way. But the prime ministers that have come before, or the leaders that have come before, just haven't quite hit the same mark. So yeah, it's been pretty incredible. Even through our Christchurch shootings that happened last year, she was really started to, I guess, shine through that process, just being so empathetic, which is like, I feel like it's like should be normal, but 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 she's making it normal, I think, in politics, which I think is really beautiful. And then right through until now. So yeah, it's been pretty inspiring. I think we, as naturally, I think Kiwis do, we take everyone for granted. So I think everybody in the outside world is like, she's incredible, and we're sitting here like, oh yeah, she's pretty cool, huh? Like, so we're relatively chill, but yeah, I think it's
it would be like, it'd be great for everyone to be in a position where they could take it for granted, because
exactly. Yeah.
So where do you feel like you are getting communication and leadership right personally?
Good question. So I guess understanding who you're talking to, and then communicating with them in largely a way that really suits them, and just being a really real person. So I think from the Owners Collective perspective, so I manage our community, and we largely share a lot of time in Facebook groups. So we have our community in Facebook groups based on whatever course they're doing. And I really think it's amazing for people to be able to drop in and connect and share. And we've created a culture where it's okay to get vulnerable and ask for support and help, and share your wins, and share the hilarious little situations at home, like with everybody working from home, with your kids running amok and your dog chewing your slippers. And, I think it's that real personal connection that people crave. And then just getting really passionate about what other people do, I think, which I think is something that annoyingly comes quite naturally to me, in that, like, I can get so excited about everything everyone else is doing, and I get very distracted. But it's amazing to jump in and share the excitement with everybody, because building a business can be quite lonely at times, and having that team to jump into is just really cool. So I don't know, I guess in many ways, some days I'm like, am I being like too much myself? Like, is this GIF competition too wild? Or is this video of me like in my PJs too wild? But it's like just getting to the real raw version of you and connecting in a real wholesome kind of way, I think is really cool.
I definitely agree. I think you do that amazingly. It's probably why I felt like we had these one-on-one phone conversations before, when we hadn't. I'm still certain we haven't. So you create such that feeling that leaves people like me, because I've been in some of those groups, or like everyone else that you come in contact with. I definitely think that you excel in that hugely.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really fun, and I honestly think, like, I genuinely enjoy following people's journeys. So when I'm communicating with somebody online, I think firstly, and I guess an important part is remembering their context, so if I'm communicating with you, I remember that yesterday I watched your video of you getting a bloody shoe on your sole of your foot and like folding it around your body, and I really wanted to try that. So when I jump online, I'll be like, oh my god, also, saw that thing yesterday, gave it a try, and I was completely useless, for example. And I think it's that bringing that context and that relevance in from the rest of the communications that you're following around that person. That was a long-winded way to say it, but
speaking to others in their language again.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of
where
my
do
journey.
you feel like there is room for improvement for you personally?
I definitely think, I mean, there's so much communication at the moment, and I think especially with everybody going online now with the whole COVID-19 situation, there's so much happening online that sometimes it's easy just to get a little bit overwhelmed, or to just keep scrolling, or to almost forget that every single person is a completely individual, unique person sitting at the other side of their computer. And I always try and share this with people when I'm talking about communications, because if somebody is commenting on your post, for example, they're taking time out of their day. Like it's actually like they're investing in you and they're emotionally involved. But sometimes when there's so much going through, it can be a little bit hard to be really present and in the moment with every single person. So I'm trying to, at the moment, with all the chat that's going on, trying to just reply to, if I'm getting practical, just reply to comments on my computer, not on my phone, because I tend to be able to type a lot more on my computer than sort of rushing through on my phone, and trying to set aside set amounts of time to sit down and really thoughtfully reply to stuff, rather than doing it on the go, because I think we naturally have a tendency to want to reply to something quickly for speed, but we don't kind of get that real emotional involvement. So I think personally it's probably just about making sure that I am and chatting to everyone individually, even when it gets busy and you've got a million things on your mind and you're kind of a bit scatterbrained. So I think that's probably one area. And then I guess the other area in terms of leadership and that kind of thing, sorry, I loved, we've probably been doing this for so long. The other thing is probably getting a little bit more confident sharing my voice. And I think that's something that we're always working on, like every one of us, and even the leaders that we see doing an incredible job, I think they're still working on it. Because I guess everything's so transparent online, sharing my voice is something that I still struggle with a little bit, when you think of all the people that are seeing it, and the different and varying opinions that can come back. I always think, oh, but what if, and that's something that I just need to get more confident, I guess, in my own identity and own voice sometimes, is just sharing my own truth and that kind of thing. And I think I'm not saying that I do it badly, but I think I can do it even better, and I think that's something that I really want to focus on and will kind of push me forward.
Yeah, awesome. And last question, where do you feel like there is room for improvement in your industry or in the world? Either or both. It's kind of both.
Definitely. I think if we're thinking on socials, because that's kind of generally where I go first, is people creating content. A lot of people start to get into this place of creating content because they think it'll look good or get a lot of likes, and I just don't think that that's a space that we should really be focusing on, because you create something that's really aesthetically pleasing, whether it's a video or a photo or anything like that, a graphic or whatever, but if it has no meaning to anybody, then there's kind of no point. So I think just making sure that we're really purposeful with our communication, especially coming back to the point that there's so much communication going out there. I think it's really important to know the reason for what you're posting, and then post it really well with tone of voice and emotion and realness to make it really connect and land. And I think the other thing along the same train of thought is actually adding value to people is really important. So on socials, people will post things about themselves or about their business, and that's cool. But really, when you think about the person that's sitting there, you should really be thinking, how can I add value to my audience? Because that's what builds the emotive connections, especially when the landscape's already really busy. So somebody doesn't want to be bombarded with sales-based posts. They'd much rather have something that tells them some amazing information to actually push their business forward. And they're going to build a much, much stronger brand love, essentially, is what we're trying to build, and they're going to build love.
Like, why should this person care?
Yeah, exactly. Why should they follow me? Because I think at the end of the day, we have to come back to the fact that somebody is actually in liking your page, they're signing up to receive communication from you, which actually has an element of risk. I know it sounds a bit ridiculous, but they're inviting you into their newsfeed, which can be quite a personal thing, or onto their, if they're signing up to your newsletter database or they're meeting up with you for a coffee, it's all the same, whether it's online or offline. There's an element of risk in that you're taking their time. And I think it's really important to be aware of that every time that we're posting or communicating online, that kind of thing. So yeah, always try and add value.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's all I've got, and I feel like we could, if we didn't rein ourselves in, we could talk for hours and hours and hours
Like
about all of this.
the whole day. We could run a whole day webinar.
Yeah, which I'm actually okay with, but
but what do the viewers want?
yeah, going back to that, why do they care? So, thank you so much for joining me, though. I really appreciate your time and your energy and what you have to share, which is exactly why I wanted to have you on, because you are so relatable, and you have a way of explaining things and sharing things that just land for people. So I'm sure that people watching definitely got a whole lot out of this. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having these conversations and putting yourself out there and adding value to your audience as well. I think it's really beautiful.
Yay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.